Welcome back to another episode. So guys, here's the scoop. You can become successful in real estate. You can go buy some rental properties. You can fill them. Obviously co-living is what we talk about a lot here. And you fill them, you make thousands of dollars in cash flow, and you become financially free one day. But there is no way that happens, even if it's one or two properties. Heck, even if it's one property without a team. So today's episode is not about co-living. It's not really even about investing in real estate. This is from an expert who's built what we call a mega team. This guy, his team, it's a residential sales real estate team, was ranked 299 out of 100,000 teams. And so he knows a thing or two about building a team, about inspiring a team, about creating culture on a team, about onboarding someone, about offboarding someone. And man, he saves the biggest gems for the end, where he talks about resentment circles. These are gems and nuggets that you can apply to any relationship, specifically to building a team, but any relationship in your life. I took away a whole freaking page of crazy, awesome notes. And frankly, I think this is just an area that I need to get better at. And so it's something I'm definitely going to order the book that he recommended, and I'm going to start reading that ASAP. Check this out. This will support you in wherever you're at in your real estate journey, because you'll be able to have better conversations. I mean, just think about the impact of one conversation. Maybe it's a quote unquote difficult conversation you need to have with a realtor or with your lawyer or with a tenant or with a member in your co-living home, right? Some of the strategies he's going to lay out will help you have those conversations and just recognize how to build a team. And I think if you really think about it, everybody's on our team. Our members are on our team. Our lawyers on our team. Our coaches are on our team. I'm on your team if you're listening to this podcast. And so it's really about how do we create this environment where we can all really win on our team. Enjoy the episode. First of all, I just want to say, hey, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And your time is valuable, and I don't take that for granted. So Ramon, thanks for being here, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Excited. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man. You had a big accomplishment in building what they call a mega team. And I saw that recently on your social, and you started this podcast off the air by saying it was one of the hardest years of your life. First of all, would you just explain to people what is a mega team, and just tell them a little bit about what that means, what that distinction means, and a ranking that you hit of 299, which is super amazing. Would you just tell people a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So in real estate, so residential real estate sales, there's teams, really back in like 2016, 2017, they really started being a more popular way of building a real estate business, was a team model. But teams come in all shapes and sizes. So, when we're ranking teams now, I can't rank a 50-person team against a 3-person team. They're still teams. So it's just kind of like, how large is your team versus the production? So classified as a mega team, that's really the largest designation of a team in residential real estate. And so, yeah, in 2023, we were ranked number 299 of all 100,000 teams across the United States.
Wow, that's out of 100,000?
Out of 100,000.
Damn, dude. Congrats.
Yeah, appreciate that.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what was your volume in sales?
Oh, let's see. Volume was like 100 and I think we closed out right at 140 million.
Holy crap. Dude,
yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. So what would you say? You mentioned that it was hard. I think a lot of people right now are in this weird space in real estate where whether they're buying rentals or building a team around their property management company. And really what I want this episode to be about, man, is just a deep dive into how you think about teams, how you build teams, how you've built what you've built, how you've led your team through arguably some ups and downs. This hasn't been like the best year, right, for everybody in real estate, right? And so just understanding that, and I'm just trying to get into your head behind that as a big goal of this, not necessarily because a lot of my audience is trying to build a residential real estate sales team, but I think a lot of my audience is trying to build a team in some way. And I'm really curious how you went from a solopreneur, solo producer to, okay, starting to understand that I'm going to be able to accomplish more with more people around me. But maybe we could start off with, what was your greatest maybe lesson from last year? What made it difficult, and what were you able to take away from that?
Oh man, what made last year difficult? Well, tangibly, right, what made it difficult was a tripling of interest rates in 2022 leading into 2023. I mean, that was really there was an estimated 6 million some home sales in 2020, 2021, 2023 closed out around 4 million. So that's a third of the business wiped out. There's some estimates that would say that per agents in the business, there was, I think the number was 13 to 15 sides available, meaning that there was, if you take all the transactions and then divide it by the agents, right, there was that many sides available. And when
that makes sense.
Yeah, and so then, but when you look at now, look at 2023s in the past, there was roughly around like 8 to 10. So that's so that means if you did everything exactly the same way that you did everything the year before, you would just still come out a third short, no matter what. Now, obviously there's some ways to control that, but yeah, so that was like, tangibly what made that year difficult. But, I think overall it's just like, from a leadership position, it's really, really challenging, especially when things aren't going well, to disassociate the success of your business and who you are personally. Because for me, it's like I've grown this business every single day of my life for eight years, every single day. And it's all I know. Like if it just went away, I don't know what I would do. I was like, and I have some ideas now. I've worked on disassociating the two, but it's really hard because when your business is quote unquote failing or not going, it's going down, like things aren't going good, you look at yourself as a failure. And that's a really hard thing to wake up to every day. And you have to show up for other people when you can barely show up for yourself. So I think that's what real estate, what made it hard, but from a leadership perspective, what also was challenging for me to get through.
How did you show up every day when you're dealing with that internal struggle, which by the way, I can relate to tremendously? Different story, different topic, different podcast, but that really resonates with me, man. And I think we all go through a season like that. What was your strategy for showing up for your team when you felt like things weren't going the way you wanted them to go?
I'll give you a good example. Do you run by chance?
I do. I do.
Okay. You hit some miles this morning?
No, I actually was about to say that, and then I realized I did yoga with my wife instead. I didn't run. I was going to say it.
You do run.
But I run, yeah.
Okay. So you know how if you're training for go call either half or full marathon, you kind of have those smaller, quicker runs in between, and then on the weekends, you usually do the big run, right? When you go on those big runs, and that first mile is always hard. You're just shaking off, like you're getting warmed up. And this process, at least I go through mentally as I'm running, is like, it's just this mental battle of like, can I do this? Should I stop short? Should I take a break? Like, oh shoot, man, I actually look up. I've actually gone 5 miles already. Oh man, I feel great. And then you get to that, the next mile is like, man, I don't know if I can keep going. And you play this like mental battle with yourself all the way until you get to the very end. You're never disappointed that you finished. But I relate running, I relate it to how it feels, the cycle of your business. There's some times where you're on one of those miles where you're like, I don't think I can actually finish this. Like I might have to quit. Like this isn't like, I might have been overzealous with my ambitions. I might have shot too high. I might have over leveraged. I might have overspent, whatever the case is. And it's just like, I just relate it all back to running. It's like, just keep taking steps forward. Like they don't got to be the fastest steps. They don't have to be the most aggressive. You don't have to sprint, but just forward nonetheless. Eventually you finish the race, assuming you don't quit. And now obviously we don't ever really finish, but for the sake of the comparison, that's kind of what I adopted, is just like, if I stop taking steps forward, they don't got to be fast, but if I stop taking steps forward, like I already know what the answer is. And same thing when you're running, like you let yourself stop one time, it's easy to do it repeatedly. You just say, hey, I cannot stop moving forward. So I don't know if that made sense, but that's like a great way to like think about that year as just one giant like 20-mile run.
This is going to help a lot of people. This is going to encourage a lot of people. Thanks for sharing that. I think a lot of people are in this boat in some sense or another, even with the rentals, some rental prices have come down, right? Things were not as good or as maybe as we anticipated them to be this year. So I call exactly what you described mile. I actually wanted to create a content piece around this. So I'm so glad you said this. It's mile 17. So I've done a couple marathons. And when you do these marathons, everybody's cheering you on at every mile, right? But then there's this mile, and for me, it's always seems to be mile 17, where like nobody's at mile 17 because you're like close, you know, and all you hear is the people's pitter patter of the feet on the concrete.
It's no man's land. Like
that's no man's land, and that's when you want to cry, and that's exactly where you have the emotions you shared, and it's, dude, this is so relevant. I'm smiling real big because I can relate to that. Ramon, tell us a little bit about how did you get into real estate? And then specifically what I want to know, man, is how did you decide to not just be, there's very successful people in your industry that are just solopreneurs, solo producers. They've got an assistant maybe, and they sell a bunch of real estate. How did you decide you wanted to build a team? How did you decide you needed to build a team? What inspired you to do that?
Yeah. So real quick if you come up with a better way to explain the whole running and because I've been struggling to figure it. If you figure out a good one, I like the mile 17 concept, but we'll have to revisit that. But
and to be fair, I thought you crushed it. I got goosebumps when you said it because I get it, dude. So no, you crushed it.
All right. So I got my real estate license in 2016. Long story short, I went and worked for a real estate investment trust, a publicly traded REIT, which was super cool. I knew I wanted to get into real estate. That was like my first dip into corporate real estate. And honestly, it was with an amazing company called Camden Property Trust. I loved it. They were like the best. It's one of the best companies you could ever ask to work for. But the whole 9 to 5 thing, and frankly, just earning potential. I figured, hey, if I stick here for 15 years, like I'm going to make a lot of money, but that's just too slow for me, especially when I was like 22. I'm not waiting around for that. So my dad convinced me to get my real estate license. He's a custom home builder. So he one day explained to me how he just paid an agent $25,000 and explained how it all worked. And I had about $250. So $225,000. I was like, wait, what did you say? Like
that was an X what you had in your bank.
Yeah, 25 in one transaction. I'm like, if I could do this 10 times a year, now we're talking. And that's honestly what sparked my interest. And then I went and worked in explosive demolition because I had no money. So I had to figure out, I'm not going to sell drugs and I can't rob a bank. How am I going to come up with like $3,000? I have $250. Like $3,000 seems like an unachievable amount. How am I going to do that? And I ran into this opportunity through a buddy of mine to work on an explosive demolition team. And we would travel around the Southwest and blow up mine quarries. So on top of they're not underground mines, they're on top, on the surface. And I did that. Hazard pay, travel was paid for. We were every day you worked overtime. I mean, it was, so I made enough money for a couple months, 3 months, and got then went and got my real estate license.
That's awesome. And then tell me about the transition. And by the way, my dad grew up in near Toledo, Ohio. And dude, they have those quarries everywhere, and they fill up with water, and it's like the clearest, most beautiful water to swim in. So I have a lot of fond memories of swimming in those growing up.
Yeah,
but that's cool.
Yeah, we did all the blasting at those in the Southwest. But I would say I had a more unconventional way of starting a team, but I always and I got this idea in my head early on. It was like, I always trade cash. I always trade cash for equity. And so I always had that mindset. It was like, trade cash for equity. Like you want to be the owner. You want to be the owner. And so when I started a team, it was like, yeah, I'm going to own this team, which eventually turned into a brokerage. Frankly, I just thought it was a good idea at the time. I heard the whole team concept and I'm like, yeah, hey, if I can add value to somebody else's world and I'm compensated for that by theoretically kind of doing what I was already going to do in the first place, real estate structure, I said, that might not be a bad idea. And, that in from 2017 to 2020 went from like 1-2 agents to 60. And so, yeah, but I kind of always knew that I think that people can follow people, but I wanted to build something that I eventually could replicate. And it wasn't solely dependent on me. And to do that, you got to create leaders in your business. And so that was kind of like I wouldn't say I was that educated at the time about what was going to happen, but I was just like, hey, I think this is a good idea. I want to build a bigger name. I want to get more exposure. And so this seems like a good idea.
So what I'm kind of hearing is 2 big reasons. One, you wanted more leverage personally. Like you didn't want to have to produce every day, because then it's a nice high paying job.
Yeah, well, I didn't know it at the time, but I just knew that, like, yeah, equity, like you want to own the asset, right? And so, in 2017, I sold like 100 homes that year, and everything was going great. But that gave me enough capital to then go start the brokerage, and it basically bankrolled everything from there.
So you wanted that leverage, whether you thought about it consciously like that or not, and then you wanted more impact.
Correct. Yeah, the impact.
Beautiful. What principles should a beginner take to heart when starting a team? And I'm asking this because I'm thinking about like the person that's out there that is started like you. Maybe they crushed it in their first year, their first couple of years, whatever. And I'm not even talking residential real estate. Maybe they're crushing it by themselves, but they recognize, okay, there has to be another way to do this with more leverage of people's time and energy. And maybe they want to get out of whatever it is they're doing. What are some of the principles that either you learned or that you felt were valuable when you first started that back in 2016, 2017, 2018?
Yeah. That's a good question. So I'm going to try to not to pigeonhole it to like a real estate team. So one for sure was follow proven models. I mean, I think that's like, for me, I was probably over ambitious and thought I was smarter than I really was. And, I learned from people that were doing a lot of business, but I was like, they're old. Like that's like, I could do it better. And the reality is that until you master the fundamentals, you should not be putting any creative spin on the business model. Like it's a business model for a reason. And so I think that's a big one, is like whatever industry, whatever you're doing, it's like find people who have had proven success in that exact thing that you want to do, and follow the business. You don't have to follow them. Like you don't have to like them as a person or think their branding looks cool. Like you don't have to agree with any of that. It's like follow the economics of their business model, how they compensate, where they get their business from, more or less what their expenses are. I mean, understanding costs of goods sold, things of that nature. That's one. The second one is like, if assuming we're talking about a team, you're probably talking about a business model, right? Like you're talking about someone who probably runs some type of P&L. And I think understanding the actual financials behind, because look, you could like in real estate, put it this way. Most teams don't make any money. I'm just going to point blank and say it. In residential real estate, most teams don't make any money. They have one person who brings in usually 70 to, if not 90% of all the income. That's the top producer, the person who started it usually. So they have 5 other agents that work with them. And from the external standpoint, it looks great. Like if Sam was a real estate agent, he just got started, and then 2 years later, he's like the Sam Real Estate Group, and he has agents with him, and he's posted on social media. Everyone's like, dude, you're just killing it. Like, oh my God. And it feels super good. Like, because Sam feels like he's achieving something. He's getting notoriety. He has a group. There's people. But then when you lift up the hood, and you get to see what's underneath it, like financially, it may not make any sense at all. And frankly, most don't. And so I think like understanding, like, are you building a business you're truly going to want to continue to run because of the profitability of it? Or are you going to want to continue to run it because it makes you feel good? And frankly, you're so far in now you can't you don't know what to do with it now, which is what a lot of people get to. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like focus on all the things that nobody else can see first before you start focusing on I want to make because this is how people think in the world of social media. It's like, I want to make the announcement. I want to show people that I'm doing stuff. I want to, whatever, get more likes or follows or whatever. So yeah, focus on the stuff that's behind the scenes, the actual structure.
Yeah, I can make an analogy to even like rentals or co-living for this, because I think this is a brilliant point, man. This is so true. Is that basically what I hear you saying in a nutshell is net matters. Like your net matters. Like I hear people in the real estate world on the rental side of things be like, well, I have 1,000 doors. Cool. How much money does all of that put in your pocket at the end of the month? Does that like ultimately, if we're trying to create financial freedom through rentals, and again, I'm kind of making the rental analogies, a lot of my audience will be able to relate to that, but your point is well taken, dude, which is like, okay, cool. That sounds good on social.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, like to take it to the rentals again, like I teach a lot about seller financing. Especially, I think it's great for agents to understand how to take down deals using creative finance, specifically seller financing. But I always say, I'm like, I'm not a big fan personally. And I don't know if this is what you teach, so this might be a fine line, but like, I'm not a huge fan of just like, hey, you should use creative financing just because. Like, just because you can buy a deal and you do creatively, so the entry point's super easy, doesn't mean you should actually buy it. Because sometimes we think, oh yeah, but I'll have another rental. It's like, yeah, but if that rental, like, I know it feels good to have it, but like, if it's not from a financial side producing what it's supposed to do, like, should you really have it? And so I don't believe in just buying things for the sake of buying them, and you know, especially super high leverage situations, because it sounds good, like you said, I have 25 doors, 25 units, but it's like, yeah, but if your loan to value is 95% on all of them, and your cash flow, if that's the case, is going to be also razor thin, we know that. It's like, it, you know, would you be better off with like two really solid rentals? You actually might.
Yeah. Two really solid co-living deals that drop a couple grand a month in your pocket. They don't sound sexy, and they're not even that sexy to run, but they can put cash flow in your pocket.
You actually might be better off. Correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great principles, proven models. Really, truly understand the behind the scenes, not just what's shown on the outside. Brilliant. Man, I want to ask a question about vetting. You know, and I'm selfishly asking this because one of my greatest challenges in building teams in general has been vetting people that come on to my team. And so how do you vet people to ensure they're going to be a good fit for you, your team? And I'm talking all levels, not just agents. I mean, whether it's an assistant or whatever. Talk to us about your mindset, your process on that.
Well, I think like a lot of things is, if I asked you, hey, if you ask the audience, like, what do you think would be some good things to do to vet somebody? They would say, well, I'd probably look at their social media, probably run a background check. I probably call their references, right? I'd probably, you know, ask them, you know, have some conversations, may even like have some type of test or thing to really confirm they know what they're talking about. I might have them take a disc test or some type of personality test. So it's like, those are like the basic things that, even though they're super basic, like those are things you should probably do always, no matter what. I think there's like three levels of, this is how I've experienced it, as there's three levels of a hire. So hire number one, this is somebody who really has zero experience and you know, might have some intangible skills, right? Like they can probably show up on time. They're, you know, they're well spoken, but they have really no experience in what you're about to teach them. And that person comes at a pretty low cost, right? Then you got the middle person who has some track record, maybe has some experience, not directly, but like it'll translate. And they have all the intangible skills too, but they do have some type of performance track record. That's a level 2 hire. Then you have a level 3, and this is just proven in the space. They have done and can do what you need them to do and are probably pretty good at it. Obviously, the third one is the most expensive, and then the second, and then the first, right? So I like to understand, number one, who am I hiring and what am I willing to hire for this role? So if I'm hiring a director of sales, for example, to run an actual market, like this is basically the person who, if Ramon can't answer his phone or he's not, like this is someone who I'm relying to be a extension of me. This isn't somebody who I'm gonna even consider a level 1 or 2 as a level 3 person, because that's a very important part in my business. Now, if I'm looking at, you know, a front office person, office manager or something like that, sure, a 1 or 2 could be fine. So understanding like who the person is, and I just choose like, hey, it's a level 3. I got to find the level 3. I'm not willing to compromise on that. And then all the different things that I talked about prior that you should do to vet people, that's what I do. And honestly, I think at some level, right, you just have to go with your gut feeling, because everything a lot of times sounds good in the hiring process. But the best way, though, is to the best way to ensure you either get someone out of your business super quick or they're going to be a long-term fit, is just setting your expectations crystal clear up front. So I think all those three things combined: do the basics, understand what level of hire, and then 3 is set your expectations crystal clear and then hold that person to those expectations. I think that's how you end up with really good hires.
Dude, that's amazing. Is there any kind of secret to, I understand what you're saying about going with your gut. And I think that the things you're talking about are brilliant. And I think it applies to someone hiring an assistant or someone hiring, like you're saying, a director of sales. I think the principles here apply to anything, whether they're or a property manager or anybody. Is there anything that keeps you from, or are there things that someone should be looking at that could be red flags when they're hiring someone? In other words, like, I feel like there's a lot of excitement a lot of times when you're hiring. And again, this is me asking because this is my personal experience of like, I'm excited, they're excited, we're in this, we get into this, and then maybe I missed some things I should have done. And maybe I even skipped some of those basic steps, right?
Yeah,
like I didn't call the references.
I'm only referencing those because I've for sure skipped them and then ask yourself, did I call the references?
Yeah.
Nope, I didn't. And
Exactly.
to be honest, man, I've even made the mistake. I've even made the mistake of calling the references and them telling me to run, but still pulling the trigger anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different, but not letting your emotions get involved is a big one. Like I always look at somebody like, can I help this person? Like, not like they need help, like top level 10, they're not looking for help, but like, can I add value to this person's world by them being a part of mine? And, I let that get the best of me a couple times. I learned my lesson, but, I think take your time. I think that if someone's interested in your opportunity, like, you don't have to make a rush decision. I think having an adequate amount of conversation, and like our last director of sales I hired for our Scottsdale location, I think we met 4 times before we actually like came together and said, let's do this. So yeah, I mean, outside of take your time and make sure you like really feel like you checked all your boxes. Outside of that, I mean, I think the other thing you just got to look at is like, could I be around this person could I see myself like hanging out? Not like you got to hang out with your employees or anything like that, but like, do I think they represent and are like at the core who I would want to be around and associate myself with? And I've also made that mistake too of seeing, oh, well, they have experience, but like, I don't know, man, this person doesn't really like, I don't know if this is a good extension of me. Right.
Yeah. Well said. Culture right now is a big buzzword. It's been a buzzword for a while. But one thing I know that culture isn't is just a plaque on the wall with some core values. Right.
Yeah,
and so my question for you is, what is culture really? How do you develop it in your team? Obviously, you wouldn't have gotten to this point without having some sort of handle on this or culture, because I believe that companies or teams with bad culture just end up having people leave. It just becomes chaotic and dramatic. And we've all probably been a part of something like that. So I know that's kind of a couple part question, but like, I'm curious how you define it, what you think it is, and then how you work to create a culture in your organization. I have this little thought. I'll say this one thing and then I'll turn it over. Like, I have this one thought of like, I've always wondered, like, is culture really something you can create? Curious your opinion on this, or is it just something that flows from who the leaders are? Like, who the leaders are is what the culture is going to be. Like, you can't really, like, the plaque on the wall isn't going to change who the leaders are. So I've always had this little tension in me of this buzzword culture. I'm really curious your opinion.
I agree with you on the latter. I think that it very much does come down to the main person, and that trickles to everybody else. I agree with that, because if your core values, quote unquote, and the leader, those don't align, right, that's where you have big problems. So it's like, I think accepting who you are, how you want your company to operate, who you want to attract, but then also coming up with ways to insert that into your day-to-day business. I think it doesn't, like you said, plaques on the wall. I think, yeah, that's one way of inserting it, right? So plaque on the wall is a visual representation in your office. Okay, that's one checkbox out of probably 20 that is a part of culture building, right? I'm no expert in culture building, but one thing that I have noticed over the years is that the more emphasis you can put on developing a North Star where we're all building towards, and then how we're going to behave getting there. And to me, like coming up with sayings in your business, things that I could say, hey, like my company, they joke all the time. If I put a message into our main communication channel and I say, hey, send me your, favorite Ramon quotes, you will see like 10 of the most consistent quotes that they hear me say all the time. And I think like that's just another, again, checkbox though of the 20 different things on how you organically insert, is that these are things that I've developed over the years. And I'm like, this is how we're going to operate. And so these are the things that I constantly am reiterating to the team. But you got to be consistent with that reiteration. Again, I want to like preface this with saying there's not like one way, but I think there's a variety of different ways to organically, truly, not just, hey, the guys, this is who we are all of a sudden. Like, no, like to put that into the business or in the right way where it's authentic. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, because I'm kind of in the middle with you. Like, yeah, you can do all the fluffy stuff, but at the end of the day, like, like actions are caught, not taught.
Yeah,
so like how like what I tell people to do, like I have to emulate that to like. There's days where, you don't want to get out of bed, but you're just like, dude, I don't want to go for this run. I don't want to do this. Like, and I think about it. And I'm like, yeah, but don't I sit there on my morning meetings and tell people when you hit that wall to freaking think about like X, Y, Z? Like I can't not, handle it and get up when I'm telling other people that they should. Like I can't tell people to exercise or take care of their health if I'm not doing that. And so I think it all kind of organically flows, I do believe, from the top.
Dude, that's brilliant. I love the North Star. I love the consistency too. I think that that's something that I even could work on, because a lot of leaders, I have a decent amount of, this is where we should go. And then like, well, this is where we should go. And so I think just having that consistency of like, hey, this team is going towards this and we'll readjust when we get there. Not that it can't adjust at some point, but I think the consistency just really speaks to me. The other
side too of this is like at some level, we used to put a lot more emphasis on culture. Like, I mean, a lot of emphasis. And over the years, what I've kind of realized is that there's
talking about you and your team specifically.
Oh yeah. Oh man, culture. Like I mean, I used to have a culture book. I mean, that would come out every year where our agents get to contribute to it and talk about what it's like to work here. And I would send that to recruits. Right. And it was kind of it's almost like a yearbook, right? Like that's kind of, it was a cool, but we've done, I mean, a lot. I mean, I have them plaster on the wall, huge, top ceiling to floor. I mean, I've done it all I think I've done a lot of things when it comes to inserting culture. But what I also realize is like, just let success be the culture. And specifically in our world in sales, like success is the culture here. And I think that was one of the like eye openers where I'm like, well, what's the outcome I want? Well, I want super successful agents, right? Well, what do super successful agents do? And that became the culture. And so I think a lot of times we put so much emphasis on like who we have to be. It's like, that's great, but like, what's the outcome we're looking for? Well, I want winners. I want people who are successful. Okay, great. That's going to be our culture. It kind of like allowed me to take the foot off the gas on like putting so much emphasis on that stuff. And I think that helped it organically develop, where you start to see, and the good sign of this is when you start to see the other people in your organization kind of enforcing things that they know are to be true of the business. And that's when because that's the buy-in, right? You got to have buy-in from the team as well.
It's almost full circle to what you were sharing about the social media side of things, of like, we can do all this stuff to make it look good, but ultimately your net matters. What you're pulling home matters, or to make the rental home analogy, like, yeah, you can buy a home creative financing just because, or you can figure out a way to buy it in a way that it nets a good return to you, right? So
Correct.
yeah,
That's actually great. I like that connection right there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
A couple more questions here, man, and I really appreciate your wisdom. I think this is brilliant. I think there's so many parallels between building a team and anything, and the wisdom you have on building a team in residential real estate sales. Something I hear a lot when people talk about hiring their first person or bringing on someone to help them in anything, and I'll give you an example. Like, there might be someone listening to this that's self-managing a couple co-living homes, and maybe they don't want to like pay to hire an assistant to help them vet their leads or whatever. They're just like, and so the belief I've heard is, well, I can't afford a team, or I don't have the money for a team, so I'm just curious, like, how you got over that when you started bringing on other people to your team. Obviously, bringing on agents is kind of a commission-based thing, but I know you had to have staff, right? You still have to have staff at some point to build a brokerage and to build a team like you've done. So how do you afford your first team member, man?
Well, that's a great question. But at the end of the day, I think the way that I look at our team is their investments. Like, I think of them the same way that I would think of like a real estate deal, except I think you can have an exponential return. Like, at the end of the day, you buy a co-living house, you buy a single family home, like, yeah, you there's ways to squeeze the juice out of it. At the end of the day, like, there's kind of a cap. Like, this is about the best you're going to do, optimized. But with human capital now, I think your returns can be exponential, and there's no limit to like the next person you bring into your business, what that could do for you. And I look at it the same exact way. And frankly, at this point, I've learned I'd probably invest in human capital before anything else. And so how do you afford it? Again, I think that understanding your business model, and as much as we want to say like, hey, invest, grow, scale, it's like, well, financially, like, can I afford it? When could I afford it? And understanding like, what is this person going to do and how might that create more ROI? And most people with your first hire, it's typically giving you more time so you can bring in more revenue. That's typically what that first hire is going to do for you.
Say that again. That's good.
Typically, the first hire is going to alleviate some low cost task from your world, so you have more time back to go bring in more revenue. So when you look at the investment, it's really, I'm investing in somebody to take care of the least profitable parts of my business so I can continue to focus on the most profitable. But understanding that if I do that, well, I need to have a clear path at how I'm going to bring in more revenue. Because if I can't, then, do I need to hire that person, or do I even want to? Do I even want to bring in more? I don't know. Maybe things are good. I don't need to, rock the boat.
That's powerful, man. That's a great way of looking at it. Two more things I'd like to get your opinion on. And one is your philosophy on delegating and like trust but verify, or do you micromanage? What is your way of giving someone a project and ensuring that they follow through? That's really the question I want to ask.
I've learned this from some great mentors of mine, is like, I let people fail and I never hold it against them.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's hard to do when you're paying their salary.
What's that?
I said that's hard to do when you're paying their salary.
It's very hard. But the flip side of it is when you don't support people, even because everyone can support somebody when they're winning. Who doesn't? It's like, that's very simple to do. Everyone naturally does it. But when things aren't going well, are you still supporting them? And do you hold those mistakes against them? Because if you hold them against them, then they hold them against them. And that limits their ability, because now they think, I'm not good at this. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm scared to mess up. And then you create a business that does not take initiative, that does not come up with new ideas, because they're scared to screw it up and they're going to be ridiculed, and they kind of want to just wait to be told what to do and make sure they don't get it wrong. They don't get it right, or they don't get it wrong. Excuse me.
Right.
So I think like that's been a huge part for me, is understanding that people will fail. And when they do, discussing it, having a conversation, understanding where the failure was, and then supporting them through moving forward. And I've only learned that from doing the opposite. I've only learned that from doing the opposite and micromanaging and, hey, why isn't this done? Hey, this isn't done the right way. And there's actually a really great book that I would highly recommend to anybody who even has one employee or is thinking about it. It's called Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. And Multipliers discusses how your ability to ask great questions actually tangibly increases the IQ of your organization. Or the flip side is you can tangibly decrease the IQ of your organization. And it's an amazing philosophy that so many times we want to tell people how to do their job and what to do. But when you do that, you're actually, again, limiting their abilities. Because if they think they constantly have bad ideas because you're like, oh, that's a dumb idea, we're not doing that. Now they stop coming up with ideas because they're like, why would I? We're just going to do it Ramon's way. And then when you're telling them how to do their job, all they're going to do is take your direction. So they're going to wait for you to tell them what to do. And that creates two things you don't want: people who don't come up with new ideas and they wait to be told what to do. That's like the death of any organization, right? Like those two things. So by taking the time and asking questions and helping them walk through your thought process, but in their own head, allowing them to come up with their own realizations and understanding in their mind what went wrong and how they're going to fix it. And then doing that, it empowers the employee, it empowers the person rather than belittle them. And so I think like that just concept of like, yeah, you messed up and I'm the one taking an L for it. Yeah, well, that's how business works. It wouldn't be a business if you wouldn't get all the reward, or I'd say all the reward, but you wouldn't get the financial rewards without having the clear risks every single day. And so I think it's like your employees are, and frankly, the ones that mess up the most are usually the ones that figure it out the quickest. Like the ones that make the most mistakes early on, in my experience, have been the ones that and don't make them twice, or at least try their best not to. Those employees and those team members are phenomenal. Like when they take your advice and you're supporting them through it and you're working together, and they just keep going until they get it right, and then they're off to the races, and they become a much more easier management situation, if that makes sense, right? Because it's more collaborative, it's more supportive, it's more open, and all of those things I think are great things to have in a company.
Dude, that is so good. Hard to do, but really, really good. When do you know when it's beyond the collaborative level and you need to let someone go? How do you offboard? What does that look like in your head, trying to, when you're like, okay, I've supported this person through, they have failed and it's time to move on?
I look at deposits and withdrawals. I look at that first. A key person who's been with me for 5 years could make a massive mistake today, massive, right? And it could cost the company a lot of money. I'm going to look at this person's deposits and withdrawals to our world. Chances are there's a lot more deposits, right? There's always going to be some withdrawals, but sometimes you have that exact same thought process about someone else. And you're like, well, shit, actually, it's quite a bit of withdrawals here. Withdrawals with time, withdrawals with issues, withdrawals with energy, withdrawals with money, making a financial mistake that costs the company. And I think it comes back down to setting the crystal clear expectations. And when something's not going right, you sit down, you have an open conversation about it. The way that person handles that will be very telling. And you get right down to exactly what the problem is and how you want to see it resolved. There might be some ways you can help them with that. It happens again. If you want one more conversation, like, hey, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in our last conversation, we said X, Y, and Z. Does that sound about right to you? Oh, yeah, we did, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Hey, man, I just want you to know, from a business perspective, I love you, but I can't have that happen again. It not only harms you, but it harms everyone else in the company. So can you promise me that's not going to happen again? Oh, yeah, man, I promise I won't do. Okay, cool. Third time, it's not even a conversation. And I think that's like, as long as you can look and say, hey, I've had the conversation, I've gotten down to it, I didn't hold anything back. Because what happens is like there's resentment that builds, and resentment is what causes the big kaboom. But a lot of times it's the employer or the team leader who's not being crystal clear about what's bothering them. And when you allow your team member or your employee, you ask them specifically, like, hey, is there anything I'm doing that's bothering you? Maybe something you haven't said before. I just want to make sure we're always on the same page. We're partners in this. They will tell you things that you didn't know before. And then you say, hey, Sam, now that you've shared, and you let them talk, and man, they'll talk. They will talk if it's one of these conversations. Hey, Sam, you've shared a lot of great things, and I just want you to know, like, you visually seen me. I've taken notes on all of it. I'm going to be better. Is it okay if I share a couple of things from my perspective as well that have been kind of bothering me? And they're going to say yes, because you just let them talk for 20 minutes. And you go through the same exact thing where you explain all the things that they're doing that you haven't said yet. And what it does is it completely opens up everything. And this person typically leaves a lot more clear. You leave a lot more clear, and you guys have probably connected on a different level as well. And when you take that time to do that, in my opinion, the right way, like, it stops those conversations from having to continue to happen. But there's usually always something you didn't say or they didn't say in those conversations. And that's still, even though it's a small amount, it's still a little bit of ways off. So as you keep going, that gap just gets bigger with alignment. And that's the biggest problem. So I kind of went in like kind of all over the place there, but it's a thing called resentment circles. And it's where you specifically take everything that they reference, like, hey, Ramon, you tell everyone to be here at 9 and you get in at 9:05. Okay. Circle, Ramon gets in late. What else? Oh, you blah, 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 this, that, the other, this happened. Okay, cool. Ramon gives really tough feedback when it's not necessary. Got it. And I'll go through and talk through each one of those points to let them know where I'm going to be better and that they've been heard. And then we do the opposite. And that framework for me has worked. I've never seen anything work better. Of all the different, how do you, police, or how do you like discipline, or like, that's been by far the best thing I've ever implemented. And it's just natural now. It's not even like I have to think about it or watch a video before. It's just, hey, this is what we're going to accomplish today.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. I ask you a question on like how to manage, and you talk about how to collaborate. I think that's a really cool switch, right? Yeah, it feels to me, it's impressed upon me that you don't even think of it as like managing per se. Like, maybe that's not the term. You think of this as collaboration. You mentioned the word partners. I wrote down. It's a really, really, really cool dynamic, and so I can see using that how you've been so successful. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I like that you said that, because that I think you do a good job of like tying stuff together, that the collaborative environment versus the like manager employee, it completely changes the dynamic of the company. And frankly, it's just a lot more fun. I just enjoy it more. And I think I do a better job of supporting people that way.
Wow. Well, my friend, we're at the end of our time here. Thank you so much. I could go on. I thought of like 4 other questions I wanted to ask you. I was like, some of these are very selfish, because I'm in a stage, and I think a lot of people listening are in a stage of building a team in some capacity. And that last value bomb that you just dropped, dude, was like, that would work even if you don't pay their salary. Like, that would work if you're working with like I thought of a realtor I'm working with right now, where I have consistent contact with him, and it's like, okay, there's some conversations that probably need to happen that I'm not having, right? That I need to be having, and so just the encouragement is
there is a good saying in and I say relationships, just relationships with people.
Yeah, in general, yeah.
They say the truth will set you free. I say the ugly truth will set you free.
Damn,
it's all the stuff that nobody wants to say. Like, yeah, there's like the ugly stuff, but let's get like one level deeper. And that's typically where the connections and ultimately the trust, in my opinion, is made. And so I think you're 100% right. That can be used, that resentment circles and understanding the alignment. I think that can be used in any human relationship personally.
Amazing. Well, brother, how can people find your stuff? How can they follow you? If someone's interested in joining, obviously having you as a leader to learn from would be a valuable skill to take away from any residential real estate team. So if someone wants to join your team, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, best way is where we got connected on Instagram, first name dot last name. And yeah, I talk about a lot of things, real estate investing. I actually don't really do a whole lot of like what we just talked about, which maybe I should. I really do enjoy talking.
Really good. It's really good.
Yeah, thank you. And I talk a lot about, buying real estate and some cool stuff we're doing. But yeah, Instagram's usually the best place.
Yeah, man, I made a note. I think there's a whole superpower of yours around creative financing and seller financing and really getting agents up to speed on that strategy. It's hot, it's popular, and like people know about it more now than ever before, but not knowing how to do it can be a big crutch to your to someone's business. So I know you talk about that a decent amount. I've seen some of your stuff around that, and that's definitely something people should follow you for as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for that.
Cool. Ramon, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you, buddy.
Yep.
Okay. I hope that didn't disappoint. It surely did not disappoint for me. A lot of those questions I was asking because I want to get better at building teams. No matter what level you're at, you are a team builder. That's what I was trying to communicate in my intro is you're a team builder no matter what level you're at. Because you got to have a team. You got to have an inspector and a coach a lot of times, and an agent or a wholesaler or a lender. Like we all have teams if you're in real estate. So that makes this episode perhaps one of the most important episodes you could listen to, that you could share and that you could get other people excited about. And also, if you would, go leave us a 5-star review or give us a comment or a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube, so we can spread the word of these episodes and this podcast to more people as we spread the word about affordability and co-living and real estate and financial freedom. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next episode.